Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Some of you have heard me already today. I'm in this meeting. Some of you have heard too much of me, but anyway, I chose to talk about survival, and as usual, be brief. Okay. So the idea here is that we're familiar with, founder-mutations. We're familiar with cancer-causing mutations, and we know that we keep saying that the driving mechanism or central mechanism would be declining DNA damage repair capacity. And we know that this can lead to a variety of characteristics that we all preach and teach, which is increased risk of disease, younger age of diagnosis, higher probability of multiple primers in the field of cancer. But the whole issue of how the survival of these people is less clear and is much debated in the literature. I can only say that in practice, most people I talk to tend to feel that having a mutation, say a BRCA mutation, not only leads to a higher risk of disease, but it's also not good for you otherwise. Okay, it's aggressive, it's triple negative, it's everything that comes with it, and therefore it is something that it's a message that needs to be conveyed to the patient. While frankly, all my practice, I've always felt that once you have a mutation, it's very likely that your prognosis is actually better than all of people without the mutation. So we have a lot of founder populations, and that's classical for actually studying a mutation-specific survival effect. The data I'm going to be showing is based on three major sources. One large study in breast cancer etiology, gene-environment etiology, 16,000 participants. Another one on colorectal etiology, 14,000 participants. And our familiar cancer service, oncogenetic service, you name it, whichever way you want, with more than 10,000 families counseled. So it's a very, very big database, especially in a country with founder effects. So I'll touch on two. I'll touch on BRCA, I'll touch on colorectal. But when we start with BRCA, we've published 10 years ago now, hard to believe, where's Stephen? Probably somewhere here. A paper with Stephen on our cohort of women that were all the women diagnosed in Israel at the same time. We collected all the tissues from all the hospitals in Israel. Embarrassingly, I would say that today I cannot repeat it. Regardless of the science, just the social environment would not have let me do it. Anyway, we did it at that time. We published the paper in the New England, and the conclusions were that rates are similar. I have to say that a lot of my friends kind of said, well, I don't know, not convinced. Okay? And in England, everything, they take a lot of pride. But still, you have this question mark bugging your brain. Is it really better or not? So we thought that now this conference is a reason to look at it again. And this is really something that we did right for that meeting. And what you see here, you see the three founder mutations in red, blue, and green. Sorry. And you see the background in yellow, which are the non-mutated cases. And what you see is really that the 185s, who are the vast majority, are kind of doing better. The 6174s, who are another vast majority, are doing worse. And the 5382s have not decided where to be. And it's based on 3,000 consecutive Ashkenazi women with breast cancer. It's not very easy to get this size of series, okay? Unselected series. And therefore, it kind of is as close as we can get to the truth. Now, we ran it by various models, and we tried to put in age and stage, and triple negative status, which is usually reduces prognosis, and is very common in the 185s at least. So we put them all in, and what you can see that even with our power, the big numbers, you actually don't touch significance, and the most you can say is that the point estimate is less than 1 for the BRCA ones, probably around null, because you see it's spread on both ends of the confidence interval. But it's definitely not higher, and it, if at all, is to the less than a null, and the 6174 actually with lower survival. So, and that's deviated statistical significance. Kind of worrisome. You know what? Not surprising. Again, each and every one of us who's been practicing clinical service knows that 6174 is a lower penetrance, but the trickier. Once you have the disease, a little harder to control. So here's just to show again, in overall survival, breast-specific survival, you see the 185s are usually above the general population. The 5382s cross over, here they're under, but here they cross over, and the 6174 are under at all times. We were trying to dig into it further, okay? So one of the things we do with patients is many times treat. And the biggest issue is what to do with the early stages. And luckily for us, with all our interventions and detection programs and everything, the vast majority of our patients are stage 1 and 2 in breast cancer. Okay? And it's probably more than 80% of all our cohorts are stage 1 and 2. So it was interesting to see what a typical adjuvant treatment, let's say AC-Taxol effects would be on BRCA carriers with early stages. Please remember that most of the time, the doctors at time of diagnosis and treatment decisions didn't know that the patient is a carrier. These are participants in studies, and you learn the genetic status along the way, okay? And very interestingly, you see the 185s doing better, no matter whether they're treated or not, red or blue. No matter. You see the 5382s playing an unclear picture of a rare event, so it's also not powerful. With, the treatment seemed to be deleterious, or bad for you, compared to those who were not treated. Now, these are all early stages, okay? They're all stage 1 and 2. There's no reason in the world to think that one of the groups had more 1 than 2, okay? It's a normal distribution of a population, okay? So it seems as if treatment is bad for you here, and it's very good here. Remember that we are up in the scale. These are early stage breast cancer. The prognosis is supposed to be very good, okay? So they're not supposed to die of breast cancer. So really, it's cut here, actually here it is cut in the other graph. But look at the 6174. They were doing very badly. If they were treated, they were deep wonderfully. Okay? In the paper, in the New England paper 10 years ago, we already hinted to the possibility that if you have a carrier, regardless of stage, treat. Don't look for ways of avoiding treatment, okay? We also have an interesting paper recently, just last month, from a group in Beninson, to show that, for example, Oncotype DX does not predict recurrence in carriers. I'm not shocked at all. The model was not fit to carriers, okay? So I'm not surprised. But not only that, treat. Even if otherwise you will not treat. That is the outcome of that. I mean, everything is very significant, but honestly, on my statistical corner, it's probably statistically significant because of this difference and not because of this. But let's skip this point right now. Anyway, Stephen Narrett already pointed out to the difference in the penetrance 5382s between Western populations and the Polish population. We see that same here, and therefore I want to warn you that you need to be dealing with your specific mutation. Somehow, when I talk to Jan Lubinsky in Poland, all his 5382s are happy, they live long, they are a very mild mutation. In Israel, 5382 is the worst mutation. Highly penetrant, in any aspect you want, double mutations, early age, everything. Very, very, very penetrant. So all I'm trying to say is every data that I'm showing, I can only testify to what I know here for us. I'll take a step aside just to touch on 3 genes. In only one slide, the breast cancer aspect of MUT-YH heterozygosity, the CHEK2 1100, the PALB2 that we checked, just to show that we're looking at survival of these carriers, and we have quite a bunch of them to my surprise. The PALB2 emerges as a bad one. The other 2 do not really matter. This one is a bad one. I'm sorry, it didn't have significance, which is a matter of death or life. You know, I mean, Will is submitted to a journal to the point. Okay. Anyway, moving on, because pretty soon I'll hear the gong, and I get no credits here. You do tell me when.
1 minute more, but.
Okay. But am I in the 3 or not? Okay. So looking at the MSI, moving to colorectal cancer, and looking at the MMRs, our usual process, we have a whole long list of cases. Most of them, or probably the majority, came from the MEC study, which is a study that I pointed to before. It's a study that we're carrying out for a lot of years, 98, with Steve Gruger sitting here as the leader, or at least probably the leader of this study for about almost 20 years now. It's a study with 14,000 participants, but it doesn't matter where all the source was. We were studying about 6,000 of them for MSI status. Any one of you familiar with the literature, there are no papers on 6,000 MSI testing, okay? We have 1,000 MSI high cases, 1,000, okay? Which complies with the expected frequency. In only 10% of them, we found mutations in the MMR gene. 20% of them are BRAF positive, that again, for people in the field, suggest an epigenetic origin. And we're left with 70% of people that I will call unresolved. I divided them into cases where no mutation identified, but the instability was found in at least one mononucleotide, by 25, by 26 usually. And the group that were, again, no mutation, but they were unstable only in dinucleotides. And these are the source of the most nagging that I get in clinical service. What should I do with it? And go on and test more and more and more. So I was very curious to know, what I know about them. Okay?
3 minutes.
So first thing, if you're MSI high, your survival is better. Highly significant. You clearly have a better survival. Any MSI as a group. But, by the way, if you do it by mutation type, so like by the A636P in MSH2, or by all MSH2 mutations, we have 4 founders in Israel, or you do it for the MSH6s, which are usually duplications, deletions, insertions, they're always better. They're always better. But if you start breaking it down into those where you have identified mutations, the reds, those where you have not identified mutations, okay, but are MSI high and BRAF negative, they're here. They are here. They're much better than the yellow, which is the MSS, the regular stables. But they're very far away from those with the mutations. And then you have a group that is MSS with BRAF positivity, which are terrible, just generally bad prognosis. And in the middle, you have those who are MSI high epigenetic BRAF positive, who are almost like MSS. Interesting. A very clear break, of course, highly significant. You go on and you split them into mononucleotides and dinucleotides, and the dinucleotides are doing much worse than the mononucleotides. You want to put numbers on them. By the way, and again, everything is significant. Doesn't matter how many BATs are mononucleotides are involved. One is enough. So having 2 or 3 doesn't give you an advantage. Look at the survival numbers. It's 80% if you're stable, if you're mutated. It's 70% if you're mononucleotides that are unstable, but no mutation. You're 60% if you're unstable, but only in dinucleotides. And you're 60% if you're BRAF positive, compared to 60% if you're stable. Very beautiful paper. So it almost looks as if these instables are not true MMR related. Then I'm adding one more piece of information. The first degree reported, first degree colorectal cancer. 50% in those with the genes, with the mutations, but only 13-14% in those who are MSI high, BRAF negative, but regardless of whether the mononucleotides or dinucleotides, they're very, very low. That is a population frequency of a first degree relative. These are not linked suspect. They're not. Okay, so the last slide with data for the wording is that if you add treatment to it, and for here treatment was pharmacolocuvorine, Wills, FOLFIRI, FOLFOX, whatever you want. The MSI highs actually suffer from treatment. They suffer from treatment. So if you have MSI, you do not want to treatment if they're early stage. Again, early stage. Okay? Very clear recipe. Conclusions. BRCA1 seem to have a better survival. BRCA2 seem to have worse survival. But it seems to be corrected if you treat, regardless of what the tumor looks like. Colorectal cancer with MSIs have clearly better survival, but only if you have a mutation or you have a mononucleotide involvement. If you only have the nucleotide involvement, you do not get the benefit. And in any case, treatment is an issue, because treating them is probably harmful to them, okay? And it's very intriguing. We have a big group here. They are unlikely to be Lynch syndrome related. Unlikely. Immunologically, they could be harmed, but unlikely to be Lynch related. A lot of funders behind this. Steve, you see them, okay? And a lot of people involved. Many people in the department, in the lab. It's just a big team, big effort. And again, a lot of credits to Steve and his team. Thank you very much.